Okay, so here we go. We are going to start on the algebraic reasoning review number 14 of factoring. So here listed up top are just some important steps to remember that you got to factor out the GCF first. That could be a number or a variable. And then, is there a number bigger than 1 in front of x squared? If yes, then you've got to use your box to factor to pull the factors out. If it's just x squared with a 1 in front of it, then find the sum and product to get your factors. Okay, so number 1, it just has a 1 right in front of my x squared, so I can find my sum and product. There's no GCF. My sum is -4. My product is -32. Okay, so remember you can look on your calculator, and if you get stuck with finding the factors, then you can use your calculator and do -32 divided by x, and then go to second graph. The factors here that work out are going to be -8 and 4. So I'm going to fill out my parentheses, x minus 8 and x plus 4. Very nice. Okay, so, and you can double check yourself. X times x is x squared, x times 4 is 4x, and then you have a -8x. When you add those together, it's going to give you a -4x, and then -8 times a +4 is a -32. Okay, number 2. First, let's see if I have a GCF. And I do. These numbers are all divisible by 3, and they all have an x next to them. So my GCF is 3x. I'm going to come in and divide everything by 3x. So this becomes x squared plus 8x plus 7. Okay, now when I'm looking in here, just this inside part, there's a 1 right here in front of my x squared. So all I have to do is find my sum and product to factor this inside part. I'm going to go ahead and bring the 3x down so I don't lose it and lose points. So my sum is 8 and my product is 7. The only factors of 7 are 7 and 1, and what do you know? They add up to 8. So I'm going to fill in my parentheses, x plus 7 times x plus 1, and box that answer. There we go. Okay, number 3. Let's take a look at this one. Okay, do I have a greatest common factor? No, I don't have. So I know that I'm going to have to multiply my A and C to get my product. So my sum is still 7, and then 6 times -3 becomes -18. So I'm going to fill out my box with what I've got so far. 6x squared goes to the top left, -3 in the bottom right. Okay, I need to find the factors to fill in my other two squares so I can factor out the box. Okay, so the factors that are going to add to 7 are 9 and -2. That multiplies to -18 and adds to give me a +7. So I can put 9x and -2x. Okay, now I'm going to factor out. So what's my greatest common factor between 6x squared and -2x? It's going to be a 2x. What's my greatest common factor between a 9x and a -3? It's going to be 3. Then 2x times what gives me 6x squared? 3x. And then 2x times what gives me a -2x? It's just going to be a -1. So 2x plus 3 times 3x minus 1. Box it up. Okay, number 4. GCF. Do I have one? No, I do not. So none. My sum is going to be -11. My product is negative 12. I'm going to go ahead and start my box for this one. I put 3x squared in the top left, negative 4 in the bottom right. Okay, now we've got to find the factors that multiply to give me negative 12 and add to give me negative 11. I'll give you 1 minute to do that. Okay, so negative 12 times a positive 1 will give me a negative 12, and it adds to give me a negative 11. So I'm going to put negative 12x and 1x. Okay, now I've got to factor out. Here, the only thing 3x and x have in common is an x. The only thing that negative 12x and negative 4 have in common is a negative 4. Then, what do 3x squared and negative 12x squared have in common? These guys. They are going to have 3x. They're both divisible by 3x. And then 1 and negative 4 is just going to be a 1. I can double check myself because x times this 3x gives me 3x squared. This x times 1 gives me 1x. This negative 4 times that 3x gives me a negative 12x. Negative 4 times 1 gives me a negative 4. So I can pull out these factors and bring them down right here. There we go. Okay, so on to number 5. Ooh, it looks like I could have a greatest common factor, but that 5 messes me up. So my GCF is still none, giving you some extra of these to practice doing with the box. So now my sum is 5, my product is 4. Remember, I've got to multiply these two to get my product. Start by filling out my box. 2x squared, 2. And then what are the factors of 4 that can add up to 5? So 1 times 4, 2 times 2, and that's about it. So my 1 times 4, that will work because that will add to give me 5. So I'm going to put a 1x and a 4x. Now I'm going to factor out. So my greatest common factor between my 2x squared and my 4x is going to be a 2x. My greatest common factor between 1x and 2 is just going to be a 1. Then, what do I have to multiply 2x by to get 2x squared? Just an x. 2x times what is going to give me 4x? A 2. So I'm going to bring those down. 2x plus 1 times x plus 2. Okay? And if you filled out your box with these switched or reversed, it does not matter. You'll still get the same factors. Okay, number 6. Let's look at this. Do I have a greatest common factor? Nope. X squared, x, and then no x is the last. Okay, so my sum, and then I have to remember my product is going to be special because I'm going to have to multiply this a and this c. So my sum is negative 7, and my product is negative 60. Let's fill out our box. I put 4x squared in the top left and negative 15 in the bottom right. Then let's find those factors. So remember, when you get a big number like this, make sure and use your calculator. I can go to y equals on my calculator, and then I'm going to do negative 60 divided by x, and then I'm going to press second graph to go to the table, and that will list all of the factors for me. So let's scroll on down. When I multiply 5 times negative 12, it multiplies to give me negative 60, and then that's going to add to give me negative 7. So let's fill this in. I'm going to put my 5x, negative 12x, and now I'm going to factor out. So what does 4x squared and negative 12x have in common? Their greatest common factor is a 4x. What about 5x and negative 15? Their greatest common factor is this 5. Okay, 4x times what is going to give me x squared? Just one more x. 4x times what is going to give me a negative 12, a negative 3. So there we go. Bring those down. 4x plus 5 times x minus 3. There we go. Those are your factors. If you need to pause or go back on the video, you can. What are the solutions of x squared plus 22x minus plus 121? Sorry. So this is asking for my factors. Solutions is another word for factors, where it's going to cross the x-axis officially. So I'm going to bring this just has a 1 right in front. Remember our first step, so I just have to do my sum and product. My sum is 22, my product is 121. So put that 121 in your calculator, y equals, to get your factors, 11 and 11. 11 times 11 is going to add up to give you 22 and multiply to give you 121. So x plus 11 times x plus 11. Those are your factors. Okay, number 8. Write an expression, that got misspelled, that represents the binomial x squared minus 144 in factored form. So factored form and expression. This is just asking me for the factors. Okay, so factoring again, x squared minus 144. I have a 1 in front of my x squared, so I don't need to worry about factoring anything out. It's positive. Let's jump to our sum and product. My sum, there's no value with just an x. Remember, ax squared plus bx plus c. My sum is the b value. So this is going to be 0. My product is our c value, and it's negative 144. So if you didn't recognize right off the top of the bat, this is also a dots. So let's look at those factors. I can do 12 and negative 12. I'll take the square root of 144, or you can go down your factors list. So this is going to be x minus 12 times x plus 12. That is the expression in factored form. Number 9, we're going to simplify. So before I can simplify and combine like terms, I've got to distribute my 3 into this parentheses. So this distributes to give me 3x cubed minus 12x squared plus 15. Now I've got to distribute this negative 4x into this parentheses. That negative is attached to that 4x, so I've got to include it. So this becomes minus 4x squared plus 20x. Now I can combine like terms. What can I combine? My 3x cubed is the only one that's a cubed. I have a negative 12x squared and a negative 16x squared. So I can start off by doing 3x cubed, and then negative 12 minus 4 is going to be a bigger negative number, negative 16x squared. And then 20x is the only x by itself that I have, and 15 is my only number without a variable. There we go. I'm just simplifying. I'm not solving for anything else. Number 10, we're going to simplify. This time I have to remember my exponent rules. So I have b raised to the negative third. It is unhappy up there, so remember we bring it down to the denominator. So I'm going to rewrite this out. 5 over b to the third, and I have to stamp that out twice, times 5 over b to the third. All of that times 8 a to the third b. It has a 1 next to it. So I do 5 times 5 times 8 in my calculator. 200. How many a's do I have on top? 3 and still 1b. And then on bottom, I have 6b, so b to the 6th. This can simplify further. I can, where are my b's bigger? They're bigger on the bottom by 5. So 200a cubed over b to the 5th. Number 11, going to factor once again. So let's look to see if we have a GCF. I do. These numbers are all divisible by 2, and they all have the variable x next to them. X is the smallest one, so that's the greatest common factor that they all have. So I'm going to divide all of these by 2x. And then when I do that, I'm going to get x squared plus 3x minus 18. Now, this inside part, to factor it, I have a 1 right in front of this x squared. So all I need to do is find the sum and product for the inside. Okay, my 2x, I don't have to worry about anymore. I'm just going to bring it down to my answer spot, 2x. Okay, so I don't lose credit for missing that one or forget about it. Okay, so my sum on this inside part that we're finding the sum and products for, my sum is 3, my product is negative 18. So 6 times 3 will multiply a negative 3 will give me a negative 18, and add to give me a positive 3. So my factors are going to be 2x times x minus 3 times x plus 6. Lots of factoring practice. Once again, what are the factors of x squared plus 20x plus 96? So there's a 1 right in front of here. My greatest common factor is none. So I can skip to sum and product. My sum is 20 and my product is 96. This is a big number, so you're going to want to use your calculator. Y equals 96 divided by x. And then you're going to go second graph to find that list of factors. Okay, so 8 and 12. Those multiply to give me 96 and add to give me 20. So now I just fill in my parentheses. Moving on, number 13, what is the rate of change for the following functions? This is a little review question thrown in there for you. Rate of change, remember, is talking about slope. So x equals 6. This is a special kind of function. It is a vux. So it's a vertical line. What kind of slope does it have? Undefined. What about y equals 2? It's also a special function. It's a Hoy. There's only a y and a number. There's no x. So its slope is 0. Remember, the middle of Vux and Hoy is what your slopes are, and then it's going to be an x equals equation or a y equals equation if it's a Hoy. Okay, these last two I'm going to have to do some rearranging to get them in slope-intercept form. I'm trying to get y by itself. I subtract 2x from both sides of the equal sign. So I'm left with y equals negative 2x plus 8. So my slope is right here in front of my x, negative 2. This, I'm trying to get y by itself, so I'm going to move my 13 away. So this becomes y equals 3.5x minus 13. So my slope is right here in front of my x, 3.5. Remember, y equals mx plus b, where m is our slope and b is our y-intercept. 14, what are the x and y intercepts of negative 8x plus 5y equals 40? Okay, this is in standard form. You can solve for it and put it in your calculator, but the easiest thing to do, our x-intercept is where y equals 0. So I know that this second number is going to be a 0. So if I plug in a 0 here for this, I'll have negative 8x plus 5 times 0 equals 40. I can scratch this off because that 0 doesn't affect 5 times 0 is just 0. Now I've got to divide everything by negative 8 to get x equals negative 5. So negative 5 is my x-intercept. And then for my y-intercept is where x equals 0. So I'm going to put my 0 to start with, and I'm going to plug in a 0 for that x. So negative 8 times 0 plus 5y equals 40. I can scratch this off because negative 8 times 0 is just 0. Now I have 5y equals 40. Divide by 5 on both sides. Y equals 8. I can go fill that in. Number 15, find the product of 5x minus 2 times 5x plus 2. When we have two binomials, we can multiply them together in a box or FOIL. I really like the box method. Leads to less mistakes. Okay, so 5x times 5x becomes 25x squared. 5x times 2 becomes 10x. Negative 2 times 5x becomes negative 10x. Negative 2 times 2 becomes a negative 4. Now, remember, the only two things that I can combine are if they have the same x's attached to them or they're just numbers. So 25x squared is only x squared, but then I have a negative 10x and a 10x. Those cancel each other out. So I'm left with 25x squared minus 4. (16) Find the slope for the line given. So my slope, I'm trying to find that m from y equals mx plus b. And so I'm going to get this in slope-intercept form. I draw my line, box my variable. How do I move that 4x? Negative 4x. I'm going to add it to both sides so it cancels out on this side. So I'm left with negative 2y equals 4x minus 12. Last step to get y by itself. I've got to divide by negative 2. Remember, side by side is multiply. These cancel out. Y equals negative 2x plus 6. Negative 12 divided by a negative 2 is a positive. So my slope, m equals negative 2. Number 17, another simplify the following expression. So before I can simplify and combine like terms, I've got to distribute that 3 into the parentheses. So I get 3x minus 12, and then I have to distribute this negative 2x into these parentheses. So this becomes minus 8x squared minus 6x. Now let's see if I have any like terms. Negative 8x squared is the only x squared value. But then I have a 3x and a negative 6x. So when those combine, I'll get minus 3x. And then minus 12 is my only number without a variable. Number 18 says solve 5x minus 3 times 4x minus 2 equals 20. Before I can start solving, once again, I've got to distribute this negative 3 into this parentheses. So I'm going to get 5x minus 12x plus 6. Don't forget that negative 3 times a negative 2 becomes a positive 6, which equals 20. Now I can combine these. These are my like terms. This is going to become 5 minus 12 is negative 7x plus 6 equals 20. Now I'm back to a two-step equation solving for x. So I'm trying to get this by itself. I move away 6. I have to subtract it so that it'll cancel out. Now negative 7x equals 14. I'm going to bring this up here and finish it. So negative 7x equals 14. To get x by itself, I've got to divide by negative 7 on both sides. So x equals negative 2. Number 19, how is x squared minus 2x plus 1 expressed as the product of two binomials? So this is asking me for my factors again. So there's a 1 in front of my x squared. So all I have to do is find my sum and product and go from there. My sum is negative 2. My product is a positive 1. So the only things that multiply together to give me a positive 1 are 1 times 1 or negative 1 times negative 1. These will add up to give me my sum, which is negative 2. So I fill in my parentheses, x minus 1 times x minus 1. And it asks for two binomials, so you should see the answer like that. If it asks for just expressed as one binomial, it would be x minus 1 squared. Okay, let's move on to number 20. Just a few more. Find the function that contains the point 3, 7 and has a slope of 4. So I have an x and a y, and my slope is 4. That's my m. So looking back at y equals mx plus b, I can't write that equation until I know what my y-intercept is. So I don't know what b is. So I'm going to plug in everything I know into y equals mx plus b. So 7 equals 4 times my x, which is 3, plus b. Now I can solve for this b. 7 equals 12 plus b. So to get b by itself, I have to subtract 12 from both sides. So this becomes negative 5 equals b. So now I have my b and my m, and I can write my equation. Y equals 4x minus 5. Number 21. Which equation best describes the line shown in the graph? Okay, so let's identify where it crosses the y-axis first. So right here, right at a positive 1. And then let's see the next spot that it's going to cross. It looks like it's touching right about here and here. It's not perfect, but that's as close as we can get with this graph. And also here. So to go from this point to this point, I have to go up 1, 2, 3. So I went up 3, and then I'm going to go forward 1, 2, 2. So this is my slope. So that I need to find a positive. It's a positive slope. So if I see anything with a negative slope, I can cross it off. And then this should be, I guess, plus 1. Sorry if that's a typo. Or your graph may be fixed. So it would be a 3/2, y equals 3/2 x plus 1 for this graph. If it is a minus 1 on your graph, I apologize for that typo. Moving right along, number 22. We're going to find the product of x minus 4 times 2x plus 5. So I'm going to get out my handy dandy box. X minus 4, 2x plus 5. And then I'm going to multiply my first row. X times 2x gives me 2x squared. X times 5 gives me 5x. Negative 4 times 2x gives me negative 8x. And negative 4 times 5 gives me negative 20. Now remember, these ones with a single x, double check to make sure that you've got the right x is matched up. So this is going to be 2x squared. And then negative 5 plus 3 is going to leave me with a negative 3, I'm sorry, a negative 8 plus 5 is going to leave me with a negative 3x minus 20. Sorry, I got that jumbled as I was saying it. So the answer is 2x squared minus 3x minus 20. Okay, number 23. This is a little review question from the end of the last semester. Find the following for the function y equals negative 4x squared minus 8x plus 5. Okay, so for number 23, we can find everything using our calculator. So I'm going to move out of this big screen and bring my calculator up along with all of this. Spread that out a little bit. Okay, so find the following for y equals negative 4x squared minus 8x plus 5. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in y equals in my calculator. Negative 4x squared minus 8x plus 5. So now I'm going to go to my graph. For my max or my min, remember this is the top or bottom of my parabola. So I have a max right here at the top. So to calculate that, I'm going to press second trace and go down to maximum, number 4. And then it's going to ask me to go to the left. It says left bound. Just go as to the left of that top, and then we're going to go to the right of the top, and then we're going to press guess, and we're not going to guess, so it's going to give us our max. Negative 1 and 9. Okay. The top or bottom of our parabola is also our vertex, so that's going to be the same thing. This is going to be the same point, negative 1, 9. Okay, now zeros. If you remember those, that's another term to describe x-intercepts when we're talking about quadratic functions. So we have to see where this is going to cross the y-axis. So let's go back to y equals. I'm going to put in y equals 0. That's the same as the x-axis. And now we're going to go to graph. And I'm going to see where those intersect. So second trace, we're going to come down to number 5 to find the intersection. Let's do the negative side first. So we're trying to get as close to the x-axis as we can and press enter 3 times. So my first 0 is negative 2.50. And then my other x-intercept, I'm going to press second, calculate. I've got to do it all again. Number 5, the intersection. Go over here, get as close to the x-axis as I can, and press enter 3 times. This intersection is at 0.50. Our axis of symmetry, that is our x equals the x of our vertex. So it's going to be an x equals equation, and the x of my vertex is negative 1. Perfect. Okay, number 24 says, which of the following has the steepest slope or the least steep slope? If you don't remember, steepest means larger number, and least steep is a smaller number, like a fraction. Okay, so do negatives matter? No, they don't. So A and B are going to have the steepest slopes, and C and D are going to have the least steep slopes. Remember, you can always put those in your calculator and go to the graph to look at those. You also, if you didn't get all these finished, there is a random answer choice at the bottom of the last page that you can finish this up. Let us know if you have any questions, and your test is tomorrow. Best of luck.